On the first morning of December 1st, 1948, the beach at Somerton, near Adelaide in South Australia, was almost empty. The sun was just beginning to rise. The sea was calm. A few people were walking slowly along the sand, enjoying the quiet start of the day. One couple noticed a man sitting against a low sea wall. He was dressed too neatly for the beach. A clean shirt, a tie, a jacket, trousers, and polished shoes. His legs were stretched out in front of him, and his head was resting against the wall as if he had simply fallen asleep. At first they thought he was just drunk, sleeping it off after a long night. A little later, another passerby saw the same man, in exactly the same position. He did not move. He did not react. He did not even seem to be breathing. By the time someone finally called the police, the truth was clear. The well-dressed stranger on the sand was not sleeping. He was dead. The police arrived quickly at Somerton Beach. They checked the man's body carefully. There were no signs of a fight, no blood, no visible wounds. His hands were clean. His clothes were in good condition, neatly pressed and not torn. In his pockets, the officers found a few small items: a train ticket, a bus ticket, some cigarettes, a box of matches, a comb, and a piece of chewing gum. But there was something missing. There was no wallet. There was no ID card. There was nothing that said who this man was. On some of his clothes, the labels had been carefully cut off, as if someone wanted to hide where they were bought, or to erase any clue to his identity. The body was taken to the morgue. There, doctors examined him in more detail. The man appeared to be in his early 40s, in generally good health. Not too thin, not too heavy. There were no broken bones, no knife wounds, no bullet holes. On the outside, nothing explained why he was dead. But on the inside, the doctors noticed something strange. His organs were congested and damaged in a way that suggested poisoning. It looked like a toxic substance had spread through his body. Yet when they tested for the usual poisons, every result came back negative. No trace of any known drug, no trace of any common poison. Officially, his cause of death would later be written as poisoning by an unknown substance. A man with no name, dead on a quiet beach, killed by something no one could clearly identify. Weeks passed. The police released a photograph of the dead man to the public. Newspapers printed his face, but no one stepped forward to claim him. No missing person report seemed to match. Then, a small break in the case appeared. At the Adelaide railway station, workers found an old suitcase that had been left in the luggage room and never picked up. The label on the suitcase had been torn off, just like the labels on some of the man's clothes. Inside the suitcase, the police found clothes, a pair of pajamas, shaving items, and a few simple tools. One detail stood out. There was a spool of orange thread, a type of thread that was not sold in Australia at that time. That same unusual orange thread had been used to repair the waistband of the trousers worn by the dead man. This was a strong sign. The suitcase, and everything inside it, almost certainly belonged to the unknown man from Somerton Beach. And yet, the mystery continued. Many of the clothing labels in the suitcase had also been removed. Once again, it looked like someone had carefully tried to erase any obvious clue to this man's identity. Days turned into weeks. The case was slowly going cold. Then, months later, one investigator decided to examine the dead man's clothes one more time. While checking the waistband of the trousers, he noticed something no one had seen before. A tiny hidden pocket sewn neatly into the lining. Inside this secret pocket, he found a small rolled-up scrap of paper. On that little scrap were just 2 printed words, in Persian, "Tamam shud." The words were strange and unfamiliar, to most of the investigators. They turned to local libraries for help. Soon they learned that Tamam Shud came from the very last page of a famous book of poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. In English, Tamam Shud can be translated as, "It is finished. It is over. The end." The discovery raised new questions. Was this a suicide note? A secret message? Or simply a strange poetic clue left behind by a man with no name? The police decided to share a photograph of the strange scrap of paper with the public. After the picture appeared in the news, a man came forward with an important clue. He told the police that someone had left a book in his car, a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, around the time the unknown man was found dead. The book had been thrown into the back seat of his parked car, and he had almost ignored it. When the investigators opened the book, they turned to the last page. There, they saw something surprising. The final lines of the poem, the lines that should have included the words Tamam Shud, were missing. That part of the page had been carefully cut out with scissors or a sharp knife. When they placed the scrap of paper found in the dead man's hidden pocket against the torn area in the book, it fit perfectly. There was no doubt now. The mysterious scrap of paper on the Somerton man's body had been cut from this very book. But the mystery did not end there. On the inside back cover of the book, the investigators noticed faint impressions, shadows of something that had once been written on a sheet of paper pressed against it. They used light and careful tracing to bring out the marks. What they found made the case even stranger. There was a local phone number, another number, and a short line of letters that looked like some kind of secret code. The phone number led the police to a woman living not far from Somerton Beach. She was a nurse. In later reports, people would call her Jessica or Jestin. When the police questioned her, she admitted that years earlier, she had owned a copy of the Rubaiyat, and that she had once given a copy of the book to a man she knew during the war. But when they asked her about the dead man from the beach, she said she did not recognize him. Still, something about her reaction was unusual. The police showed her a plaster cast of the dead man's face, a mold taken before his burial. One of the officers later said that when she saw it, she looked shocked, almost as if she was about to faint. Yet officially, she denied knowing who he was. And the investigators could not prove any connection between the nurse and the unknown man on Somerton Beach. As for the strange line of letters found in the book, many people have tried to decode it as a secret message. But to this day, no one has produced a solution that is accepted by everyone. It might be a real code, or it might simply be random letters, a dead end in a case full of dead ends. For decades, the Somerton Man remained one of Australia's most famous cold cases, a well-dressed stranger found dead on a quiet beach with no clear cause of death, no confirmed identity, and a mysterious scrap of Persian text hidden in his clothing. Over the years, people have suggested many different theories. Some say he was a spy during the Cold War, a man carrying secrets, killed with a rare poison that left no trace in the tests of 1948. Others believe he was a heartbroken lover, inspired by the dark, fatalistic philosophy in the Rubaiyat, a man who chose a poetic and mysterious way to end his own life. There are also theories that he was mixed up in crime, a man whose name someone wanted to erase permanently. New ideas appeared, old clues were re-examined. But for more than 70 years, no answer could fully solve the puzzle. In recent years, Scientists have turned to modern tools, especially DNA. A strand of hair, taken long ago from the plaster bust of the Somerton Man, was carefully tested, using genetic genealogy, the same method used to identify some unknown victims and killers in other famous cases. Researchers traced possible relatives in family trees. Some of them now believe that the Somerton Man may have been a man named Carl or Charles Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne who disappeared from the records around the late 1940s. If this is true, then perhaps he was not a master spy, but a troubled man with a complicated personal life, who somehow ended up alone on Somerton Beach on that final night. Even so, the identification is still debated. Not everyone agrees, and the police have never made a final official announcement that closes the case forever. So the mystery of the Somerton Man still lingers in the shadows. A story caught somewhere between fact and legend. A lonely beach at dawn. A man in a suit sitting as if asleep. No name. No clear cause of death. Only a hidden pocket. A torn scrap of paper. And two Persian words that whisper from the edge of history. Tamam shud. It is finished. Or maybe it isn't.